So I was just lamenting about productivity this morning. And I wanted to add to that today because I think it's a really interesting scenario. Um, I was working on a spreadsheet and redesigning a spreadsheet for a particular task. And because I worked on this spreadsheet, it took a lot of extra time up front. And I wasn't worried about my productivity per se right now. Um, But it essentially, at least in my view, I don't know how true this is, but it will save many people um, a good day or 2 days out of their time based on sort of activities that would be done based on it. Now, if I would have focused on productivity alone, I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have done this task to make a spreadsheet because it's really tedious work. If you've ever done anything like this, it's hundreds of records and going through and making sure all the records are all the same. It's really tedious, boring kind of stuff. And it takes a lot of upfront work. Now, the advantage with doing this often is that it saves you a tremendous amount of time in the long run if you repeatedly use something and build off of it. But it requires you to throw away the idea that you're going to be productive, right? Like by doing that, by definition, that means the easiest solution is not to ever do anything like that because it takes a lot of time. If you've ever done anything, built something like that, it's very tedious. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, but you save time and effort in the long run. That is pretty significant generally. Whenever I do something like this, it does have a relatively long run impact, but you can't measure that long run impact. It's very hard to measure those particular things. And all you often observe, well, why is that really hard to measure? You don't have a control scenario per se, right? It's hard to get that control scenario. You don't have a condition on what would have happened had you not done that, right? So you had that up until now of doing things kind of inefficiently, um, but you don't have it after the fact. And it might be passed on to somebody else and they might do something differently. Or I might never use this ever again. So it's hard to get those particular scenarios. So up front, it looks like it's just a cost and it's painful to do and, consumes a bunch of your time and those kind of things. So what I wanted to point out is that if you simply just focus on productivity alone, a lot of the efficiency stuff, a lot of the things that actually do add to efficiency that do benefit you and everybody else um, cannot be done because you're so focused on the near-term performance of getting things done, and you're only focused on being as productive as possible. Right? So a lot of things, there's many things that are like this. This is a basic thing. I often talk about this theme, but it's a theme. It's something that we some group of business scholars, not everybody, but some group of business scholars think about routinely is this trade-off between short and long run. And the challenges that it almost always faces, right, is that they often trade off between each other because you're doing things for the short run. Um, it means the long run's going to get penalized. And if you do for the long run, the short run's going to get penalized. It's like a general basic principle with a lot of the stuff that we think about, or the small group of people that I represent think about. And, these problems are very real that we almost always face, and there's no real right answer in terms of what is the best possible scenario. I can give you, the sort of qualitative feel of things and could say, hey, this is the best way. I like doing this. because it saves time and effort, but it doesn't mean everybody else does. So I would just like you to understand that there's always